Once upon a time, in a mansion where the silence had grown roots deep into the marble floors and glass walls, there lived a man who had everything except the one thing he used to pray for before he stopped believing anyone was listening. Jonathan Grayson sits at the edge of his office window, high above the mist-covered garden. He doesn't move, doesn't blink. The rain taps against the glass like a lullaby long forgotten. The wind rattles the oak outside. He stares past it. Below, the world runs on time. Staff arrive at 8 a.m. sharp. Gardeners rake leaves that will return by dusk. Nurses pass through the hall like ghosts in soft shoes. Therapists, specialists, trainers, they've all come and gone. None of them ever stayed, because inside this glass palace live two children, Isaac and Isaiah. They do not speak. They do not walk. They do not cry. They do not laugh. They sit in their padded room, designed by the best money could buy, surrounded by quiet toys that make no sound, and walls that echo with everything they will not say. Jonathan had built this world for them, for control, for precision. He thought he could design around grief, schedule away chaos. But grief doesn't work on a schedule. And silence? Silence grows teeth when you try to tame it. The housekeeper's voice crackles through the intercom. "Sir, the new maid has arrived." Jonathan doesn't turn. He simply says, "Send her to the East Wing. That's where the boys are." The maid's name is Miriam. No resume. No formal training. Just a quiet woman with warm eyes and a soft scarf tied at the base of her neck. She steps into the East Wing like someone entering holy ground. Shoes off, breath slowed, heart open. The nurse gives her a look. That kind of look. The one that says, "You'll be gone in a week." Miriam says nothing. She finds them sitting by the window. Isaac and Isaiah, twin mirrors of stillness. One rocks gently, the other presses a wooden block to his lips. Their eyes do not meet hers. Miriam kneels. Not with a clipboard, not with flashcards, not with instructions, just her hands on the floor. And silence. She doesn't say hi. She doesn't ask their names. She watches the light move across their faces and whispers something soft enough that only the walls can hear. "Thank you for bringing me here." By evening, the house runs as always. Jonathan eats alone. No wine, just water. One hand resting over the folded napkin on his lap like a habit he never outgrew. He doesn't ask about the new maid. He's hired enough to know how this goes. They come with hope. They leave with theories. The boys remain the same. But tonight, as he crosses the corridor that connects his wing to theirs, he pauses. There's a sound. Not loud, not clear, but different. It's humming, low, steady, a lullaby. He walks to the source. He finds her sitting on the floor beside the boys. No phone, no papers. Just her voice and a thread of tune that barely touches the air. Isaiah's head is tilted. Isaac's fingers have stopped tapping. Jonathan doesn't speak. He just watches. Miriam feels him behind her, but she doesn't stop. She simply continues to hum. That night, Jonathan opens his late wife's drawer. He hasn't touched it in years. Inside, a leather-bound notebook. Her journal, the last one. He flips it open. There, in her handwriting, "If they ever stop crying, don't assume it's peace. Sometimes silence is the loudest grief." He closes the book, and for the first time in years, he doesn't sleep in the master bedroom. He sleeps in the study. The next morning, the staff gather in the kitchen. The cook whispers, "She slept in their room last night." The gardener raises an eyebrow. "In the padded chair?" "No, on the floor." The nurse scoffs. "She'll burn out in 3 days." But she doesn't. On the third day, something changes. Isaiah, who never holds anything, keeps Miriam's scarf in his hand for over 10 minutes. Isaac, who never responds to touch, places his head softly on her knee during rest hour. She doesn't react like it's a miracle. She just lays her palm over his hair and breathes. Jonathan sees it through the corner camera. He rewinds the moment, then rewinds again. Later that night, he finds her folding laundry in the hallway. He stops. "What are you doing differently?" he asks. Miriam turns slowly. "I'm not doing anything. I'm just being here." He scoffs faintly. Being here doesn't change their condition. She looks at him, not with defiance, but with something steadier, gentler. Maybe their condition isn't what needs changing. Jonathan walks away. But he doesn't go far. He stays near the corner, and listens as she sings. The same lullaby his wife used to hum when she thought no one was listening. Days pass. Rain falls again. Miriam opens the window and lets it in. Just a little. The twins feel it on their skin. She takes their hands slowly, gently, and places them on the windowsill. Their fingers twitch. She whispers, "That's the world, little ones. It's still out there. It's waiting." Jonathan watches from the hallway. For the first time, he doesn't see strangers. He sees a woman humming lullabies beside his children, and two boys who aren't screaming. A house that used to ache with absence now breathes something else. Not joy, not yet, but breath. He closes the door, quietly, then walks to his study and opens the notebook again. This time, he doesn't stop reading. In the margin of one page, his wife had scribbled, "Maybe they don't need therapy. Maybe they just need someone to stay." Jonathan places the journal on the desk. He looks at the photo of her beside it, and for the first time in years, he whispers out loud, "I'm still here." The wind outside still rattles the oak, but inside the house, it's not just silence anymore. It's waiting and listening, and maybe, just maybe, beginning. Morning comes gently, the kind of morning that doesn't announce itself with alarms or chaos, but with the steady rhythm of breath and the scent of tea leaves steeping quietly in a pot no one asked for. Miriam is already awake. She moves through the house like memory present, but never loud. Her feet never rush, her hands never pause. There's a reverence to the way she touches even the folded towels, as though she knows the walls are watching, as though she knows they've seen too much neglect dressed as care. The boys are still in their quiet room. The sky is overcast today, but the light is soft. Miriam opens the curtains halfway. Not too much, just enough. She sits cross-legged on the floor, a small paper notebook in her hand. She doesn't write in it yet. She places it beside her and simply watches the twins. Isaiah's eyes follow the sway of the curtain. Isaac stares at the buttons on Miriam's blouse. She smiles, but says nothing. Then she does something unusual. She begins to breathe. Not the kind of breath that fills lungs for air, but the kind that fills a room. Deep, open, present. She closes her eyes. She lets the quiet stretch long. Then, very softly, she begins to hum. It's not the same lullaby from yesterday. This one is slower, older, a song that sounds like waiting, a song that sounds like home. Down the hall, Jonathan freezes mid-step. The sound reaches him faintly. It brushes past the marble and glass. It shouldn't be able to, but it does. He listens, and for a moment, he doesn't know where he is. The sound brings back something too old to hold, something from before silence became his safety, before the diagnoses, before the funeral. He shakes it off. He turns back toward the study, but instead of sitting, he stands before the camera screens. One shows the boys' room. They're still, but not rigid. Still, like peace. He watches as Isaiah lifts his hand, fingers tracing the rhythm of the hum in the air. Jonathan doesn't understand what it means, but something in his chest softens, just a little, just enough to ache. At lunchtime, Miriam prepares their meal herself. The chef protests. "We have a nutritional program for them, strict portions." Miriam smiles politely. "Yes, but I'm not feeding their bodies today, just their trust." She cuts sweet potatoes into soft, gentle shapes that look like clouds and suns. She places them on a warm ceramic plate, not the sterile tray. She brings the plate to the floor. She places it between them, then steps back and waits. The boys don't touch the food for minutes, but they look at it. They look at it. It's the first sign of curiosity in weeks. Finally, Isaac leans forward. His hand trembles. Miriam doesn't reach out. She breathes again. Long, slow. Isaac picks up the piece shaped like a leaf. He places it to his lips. He chews, very slowly, then looks at her. Not long, but long enough. She smiles again and whispers, "Well done." Later, Miriam finds the old nursery. It hasn't been used in years. Dust coats the corners, but everything is still there. The mobile above the crib, the faded yellow blanket embroidered with the initials I, G, and I. S. She picks up the music box from the shelf, winds it gently. It doesn't play, but she holds it anyway. Behind her, Jonathan speaks. You won't fix them by pretending they're babies again. She doesn't turn. She just says, I'm not trying to fix them. I'm listening to what the house remembers. He scoffs, but it lacks sharpness. The house remembers broken promises and dead ends. Miriam finally turns. Then maybe it's time to give it something new to remember. He looks at her. Really looks. For the first time, he notices the lines on her face. Not old, not worn, just earned. Why are you really here? He asks. She picks up the notebook again. The same reason you're still here. She walks past him. Jonathan watches her go, and the silence returns. But it's not the same. That night, Jonathan opens a drawer he hasn't touched since the twins were born. Inside, a collection of baby books, one of them half filled, one of them completely empty. He opens the empty one, then slowly, carefully, begins to write. Not much, just one line. Isaac tasted sweet potatoes shaped like clouds today. He closes the book. His hands tremble. He doesn't know why, but it feels right. The next morning, the rain returns. Miriam sits with the boys again, but this time she brings a bowl of water, clear, room temperature. She places their hands gently into it, one after the other. The twins blink. Isaiah pulls away at first, then slowly returns. Miriam whispers, "That's water, little ones." The first sound you ever heard was its song. She cups her hand, lets the water drip back into the bowl. Drip, drip, drip. Each drop like a tiny drum in the silence. Isaac giggles, a sound no one has ever heard before, a sound that freezes the nurse at the doorway, a sound that makes Miriam close her eyes in thanks. Jonathan, watching from the hall, covers his mouth. His chest shakes, but no tears fall. Not yet. The boys don't speak. They don't stand. But they are changing, softly, slowly. Something is waking, not just in them, but in him. He spends less time behind his screens, more time near the doors. He listens more, says less. And every night, he writes one more line in the empty baby book. And every night, Miriam lights one small candle in the corner of the boys' room and whispers a single word. Stay. The house, once frozen in time, begins to breathe. Not loud, not fast, but steady. The lullabies echo again. The windows stay open longer. The wind no longer frightens. And the silence? The silence begins to sound like peace. It begins with a cough, small, almost imperceptible. But in a house where silence once ruled like law, even a breath out of rhythm is enough to shift the atmosphere. Isaiah coughs again. Miriam is by his side instantly, kneeling, one hand on his back, the other gently cupping his chin. It's okay, she whispers. Let it come. He does. 3 more shallow coughs, then a gasp, and then something strange. A whimper. It's not pain. It's not joy. It's something in between the sound of a child rediscovering his own voice. Miriam doesn't move, doesn't celebrate. She simply places her forehead gently to his and breathes with him until his breath finds its rhythm again. Jonathan watches through the half-open door. He doesn't know why he hasn't walked in. He tells himself he's giving space, but really, he's afraid to shatter whatever is forming in that room. The next day, Miriam brings in a different kind of notebook. Not her own, not one from the shelves. It's the late Mrs. Grayson's journal, the 3rd volume, the one with the broken spine and water-stained cover. Miriam had found it tucked behind a stack of unsorted mail in the study days ago. She doesn't open it at first. She lets it sit on the floor beside her as she begins a new ritual with the twins. Today, it's touch. She holds out her hand, palm up. No pressure, just presence. Isaac stares at it. Then, slowly, his small fingers curl toward hers. Not a full reach, just a lean. That's enough. She leans in too, so he knows he doesn't have to come the whole way. They meet in the middle, and when they do, she gently presses her fingers to his palm, like a signature only he can read. That evening, she opens the journal for the first time in front of them. "Do you want to hear what your mama wrote?" she asks softly. The boys don't nod, but neither do they turn away. She takes that as a yes, and she reads, "I don't care if they speak. I don't care if they walk. I care if they feel safe." Miriam closes the book, then places it between them on the floor like a shared treasure. She says nothing more. The room stays still, but not hollow. Still, like prayer. Elsewhere in the house, Jonathan paces. He hasn't taken a call in days. His business partners are beginning to notice. "Are you on retreat?" one texts. He ignores it. He walks into the East Wing for the first time, not as an observer, but as a presence. He stands behind Miriam again, watching. But this time, she turns and nods gently. "You can come in." His throat tightens. He doesn't move. "Or you can stay there," she adds, "if that feels safer." That word again. Safe. He steps in, carefully. He sits on the edge of the long bench near the window. It's the closest he's ever been to his sons without a medical team present. Miriam stands and retrieves something from her basket. A long piece of string. 2 soft bells tied at each end. She holds it out to Jonathan. "Here. Would you like to play with them?" He looks at her like she's asked him to recite poetry underwater. "I don't know how." She smiles, not mocking, just gentle. "Just hold it between your fingers. Gently. Let them see." He does. Slowly, clumsily. He holds one end of the string. Miriam ties the other to a wooden chair leg. The bells dangle just above the floor. Miriam returns to her spot on the rug. The boys watch. Jonathan flicks the string gently. The bells chime a small, clear sound that echoes like memory in the room. Isaiah lifts his eyes. He scoots forward. His hand reaches. Stops. Reaches again. He touches the string. The bell rings. Isaac giggles. Jonathan stares. His mouth parts slightly. Not a smile. Not yet. But something is breaking. Later that evening, Miriam finds a folded sheet of paper under the boys' playmat. It's not hers. It's Jonathan's handwriting. A note. "Thank you for not trying to fix them. Thank you for teaching me to listen." She folds it again, places it inside the journal, then writes one more line of her own beneath it. "We're not fixing anything. We're remembering how to be whole." That night, the storm comes. Real this time. Thunder cracks. The lights flicker. The staff scurry. Miriam remains still in the boys' room, a single lantern by her side. The boys startle at first. Isaac flinches at the lightning. Isaiah covers his ears. Miriam pulls them both close. She hums the lullaby again. But this time, it's not alone. Jonathan stands at the door. He watches her. Then, almost unconsciously, hums along. Same tune, same breath. Miriam looks up and meets his eyes. She doesn't smile. She just keeps humming, and so does he. Together, they hold the boys through the storm. The house, once ruled by silence and systems, begins to echo with something new. Presence, warmth, voice, a whisper beneath the thunder that says, "We are still here. We are still holding on. We are not alone anymore." Outside, the rain cleanses the windows. Inside, a man rediscovers the sound of his own children breathing in sync with his. And in a notebook bound by grief, a new story begins to write itself, not in ink, but in laughter, in bells, in breath, and in the stillness that follows a storm. The morning after the storm smells like rebirth. Rain-soaked earth, sunlit windows, and something faintly floral drifting through the hallway from nowhere in particular. The mansion, once cold and clinical, now breathes like an old tree after the rain, slowly, deeply, quietly alive. Jonathan Grayson steps into the East Wing without hesitation this time. No cameras, no screen feeds, just him. He finds Miriam in the sunroom off the boys' play area, kneeling on a faded rug, her back turned, humming to herself as she folds laundry. Nothing about her posture says urgency. Nothing about the room says therapy. It looks like home. The twins sit nearby, Isaac absently playing with a small strand of yarn, Isaiah tapping a wooden spoon to a pillow in rhythm with Miriam's breath. They don't turn when Jonathan enters, but they don't freeze either. That's new. Jonathan walks slowly. He doesn't want to disrupt whatever invisible spell is holding this place together, but Miriam senses him. Without looking up, she says, "There's tea on the warmer, the one your wife used to love." Jonathan blinks. "You found it?" "In the cabinet behind the spice rack. Still sealed. Jasmine and orange peel." He nods, then sits. He doesn't say thank you. Not with words. But he pours himself a cup, sips, stays. Later that afternoon, a new presence arrives. Dr. Ellison, one of the top child development experts in the region. Tall, polished, briefcase in hand, she walks into the mansion like someone entering a boardroom, not a home. The staff straighten. The nurse gives a nod of relief. Finally, she whispers, someone with credentials. Miriam watches from the hallway. Dr. Ellison doesn't acknowledge her. She walks directly to Jonathan's office. They speak behind closed doors for 15 minutes. Then Dr. Ellison heads to the twins' room with 2 aides and a set of printed charts. Miriam is already there, sitting on the floor with the boys, placing small pebbles in a circle. A grounding game, something about weight, texture, shape. Dr. Ellison pauses at the threshold. "What are you doing?" she asks curtly. Miriam replies softly, "We're building the earth, one stone at a time." Dr. Ellison sighs. "Mr. Grayson, may I speak to you outside?" Jonathan glances at the boys, both engaged, both calm. He hesitates, but follows. In the hallway, Dr. Ellison folds her arms. She's untrained. Her methods are poetic, not evidence-based. Jonathan looks through the glass door. Isaac lifts a pebble. Isaiah touches Miriam's hand. "She's not here for methods," he says. "She's here for them." Dr. Ellison blinks, caught off guard. "With respect, grief often blinds judgment. Attachment to caretakers can." "I know what grief does," Jonathan interrupts. "And I know what it looks like when it begins to heal." He walks back in, closes the door, leaves Dr. Ellison standing in the silence she thought she understood. That evening, Miriam finds Jonathan seated outside for the first time in years. The back patio overlooks a small koi pond, the same pond his wife once described as the only place where the world stops moving. He stares at the water, hands still, shoulders slightly hunched. "They like you," he says, eyes still fixed ahead. "They trust me," Miriam replies. "Liking will come later." A beat. "Do you ever get tired?" he asks. She smiles gently. "All the time. But you keep going." "Yes." "Why?" Miriam looks toward the water, her voice like wind. "Because there are children in this world who don't need rescuing, just witnessing, and there are fathers still learning how to stay." His eyes flutter closed. He doesn't speak again for a long time, but he stays. The next morning, Isaac cries. The sound is startling, raw, guttural, new. Miriam rushes to his side. Jonathan hears it from the study and runs in. Isaac is curled near the edge of the window seat, fists clenched, face red. "What happened?" Jonathan asks, alarmed. Miriam places her hand gently on Isaac's back. "Nothing happened," she says. She leans in and whispers to the boy. "You're allowed." Isaiah, unsure, watches from across the room. Miriam doesn't hush the cry. She lets it flow, like a river that has been dammed too long. Jonathan kneels. Slowly, unsure, he tries to put his hand on his son's shoulder. Isaac flinches. Jonathan draws back, heart pounding. Miriam meets his eyes. "Try again. But this time, don't reach with fear." Jonathan swallows, breathes, then gently places his hand over Isaac's, not forcing contact, just offering presence. Isaac's crying softens. The sobs come in waves, but they're lighter now, like something is leaving him. Later, Miriam takes out her notebook again, writes, "Tears are the words the body couldn't find." Today Isaac spoke. She places a soft stone over the page, lets it sit there like a blessing. That night, Jonathan doesn't go to the master wing. He sleeps in the armchair near the boys' room. He wakes at 3 a.m. to find Isaiah curled on the hallway floor just outside the door, holding his mother's old scarf. Jonathan doesn't call for help. He picks the boy up, carries him inside, lays him gently beside his twin. Then, without thinking, he hums the same lullaby Miriam always sings. Soft, broken, off-key, but real. And the house, this cold, beautiful house, begins to feel like something else entirely. Not a monument to tragedy, not a fortress of systems, but a place where, for the first time, everyone is allowed to be human. Miriam watches from the hallway. She doesn't step in. She just writes one more line in her notebook before turning off the last hallway light. They're beginning to come home to each other. The sun doesn't rise today. Not really. It hides behind a blanket of grey clouds that sit heavy above the mansion, thick and still, like breath held too long. The air inside feels the same. Not sad, not tense, just waiting. Miriam moves slower today. She doesn't hum. She doesn't bring out the string, or the pebbles, or the bells. She only brings herself, and a folded blanket. Jonathan finds her sitting cross-legged on the floor of the boys' room, with both twins nestled against her sides, their eyes half closed, their breathing synced with hers. He stands at the doorway, hands deep in his pockets. "They're sleeping?" he asks, voice soft. "No," Miriam replies. "They're remembering how to rest." He steps inside, careful not to break the rhythm. "What do you mean?" "They've spent years watching for danger, even in stillness, even in care. Their bodies didn't believe it was safe to let go." Jonathan lowers himself slowly to the bench. He watches them. The twins don't flinch at his presence. "Not anymore. They're not like other children," he says. Miriam doesn't look up. "They're exactly like other children. They just never had permission to be seen." Jonathan closes his eyes. The words hit a place deeper than defense, a place he's avoided for too long. Later, during their garden walk, something unexpected happens. Isaiah, usually the quieter one, stops near the rose bush. He points. Just once. One finger. Steady. Direct. Jonathan sees it. "Is he?" "Yes," Miriam says softly. "He's choosing." They walk toward the bush. Isaiah kneels and plucks a single petal. He holds it out to Jonathan. A gift. No words. No gesture. Just presence. Jonathan kneels. He receives it. And for a brief, trembling second, he smiles. It doesn't last long, but it happens. And that's everything. That afternoon, a visitor arrives unannounced. A woman named Lorna, social worker, stern face, clipboard in hand. She's not here to observe. She's here to inspect. "Anonymous concerns," she says at the front door. Regarding the maid, lack of formal training, emotional over-involvement, blurred professional boundaries. Jonathan's jaw tightens. "From who?" Lorna shrugs. "Could be the agency. Could be someone inside. Doesn't matter." He doesn't call Miriam. He takes her straight to the boys' room. Lorna steps in, scanning. The room is softly lit. A woven rug, hand-drawn sketches on the walls. 2 small blankets identical but differently folded. A candle, unlit, on the sill. Miriam stands calmly by the window, notebook in hand. Lorna lifts her pen. "Do you have any qualifications, miss?" "Miriam." "Just Miriam." Lorna raises an eyebrow. "No surname?" "None that matters." Jonathan speaks up. "She's not a staff member. She's family." Miriam looks at him. This is the first time he's said that. Even she wasn't ready. Lorna frowns. "Sir, with respect, emotional entanglement in care roles can be dangerous, especially for children with complex needs. We must act in their best interest." "I am," Jonathan says, "for the first time." Lorna glances at the twins. Isaac walks over. He looks at Miriam, then at Jonathan, then gently presses his forehead into Jonathan's knee. Lorna stops writing. The report is filed later that day. Miriam reads the summary. Jonathan slides across the table. Caregiver appears unconventional but not inappropriate. Children exhibit signs of emotional progress. Recommend continued observation with no disruption. Miriam folds the paper in half, places it under her tea. "That was close," Jonathan says. She nods. "But not too close," she adds. "When truth is steady, storms don't scare it." He studies her. "Why are you like this?" She doesn't answer with words. Instead, she opens her notebook, flips to the back, and hands it to him. He reads, "I was one of them. Different house. Different silence. But the same ache." His hands tremble. He closes the book, and for the first time he says it out loud, "I was too." That night, it rains again. Not a storm, just the kind that dances on rooftops and drips gently down windows like lullabies in water. Jonathan finds himself outside the boys' door at midnight. He knocks, then remembers he doesn't need to. He walks in. The twins are asleep. Miriam sits in the corner chair, eyes half closed, humming faintly. He sits beside her. "I used to think love meant protecting them from pain," he whispers. She nods. "Sometimes it does. But I was really protecting myself. From them. From needing me." Silence. Then she says something he's never heard before. "Let them need you." He looks at his sleeping sons, their small hands unclenched, their faces soft in the candlelight. He whispers, more to himself than her, "I do." Downstairs, the last hallway camera blinks off. Jonathan disabled it. No more surveillance. No more observation. just presence. Real, imperfect, human presence. And upstairs in the boys' room, Miriam closes her eyes and prays the same word she's prayed every night since she arrived. Stay. This time, Jonathan whispers it too. The next morning arrives in silence. But it's no longer the same silence that used to wrap the house like gauze. This one feels warm, alive, like breath shared between hearts that have stopped holding themselves apart. The boys are already awake when Miriam enters their room. They're not sitting by the window like usual. They're not rocking or flinching or watching the ceiling. They're waiting for her, and when she steps in, they smile. It is the first time. Miriam drops to her knees, overcome for a second. But she doesn't cry. She knows this is their victory, not hers. She simply whispers, "Thank you." They gather around her like shadows drawn to flame. No need for toys today. No need for therapy tools. Just her, them, and time. Downstairs, Jonathan watches from the window near the dining room. He holds a cup of warm ginger tea. Not black coffee. He's switched lately. Something gentler. His eyes drift across the garden, past the koi pond, to the spot where his wife once planted lilies. They haven't bloomed in years. But today, one is beginning to bud. He steps outside. The morning air touches his face like a blessing. He kneels beside the flower and says nothing. Later, he walks into the boys' room, holding something in his hand, a weathered wooden box. Miriam looks up. "What's that?" she asks. Jonathan walks over slowly. "It belonged to her," he says, his voice softer than it's ever been. "She wanted me to give it to them when I was ready." He opens the box. Inside, a small recorder, a folded music sheet, and a tiny cloth-bound book, Lullabies for Rainy Days. Miriam gasps. "I remember this," she whispers. "She wrote these for them when she was still carrying them." Jonathan nods. "She used to sing them when she thought I was asleep. I wasn't." He sits beside Miriam. Isaiah crawls into his lap. Jonathan doesn't freeze this time. He gathers his son into his arms and lets his own breath slow down. Together, they listen as Miriam opens the tiny book and begins to sing one of the lullabies. Soft, steady, sacred. Isaac watches her mouth, watches the rhythm. Then he hums. A single note, off-key, but real. Jonathan's heart stops. He looks at Miriam. She nods, tears rising. "Sing with him," she whispers. Jonathan does. Together, they fill the room with a sound that once lived only in memory. Now it belongs to the present. That afternoon, Jonathan calls a meeting. Not a business meeting, a family one. The staff gather in the great room, confused. The butler, the cook, the nurses, even the old gardener. Miriam is there, holding Isaac's hand. Jonathan holds Isaiah's. He stands before them and clears his throat. "I built this house to protect them," he begins, "but I ended up building a cage. No one moves. No one speaks." He continues, "Miriam didn't come to save anyone. She came to stay. And that has made all the difference." He looks at the boys, then back at the room. "So, starting today, we stop working for me and start serving this home." He gestures to Miriam. "She will stay. She will lead their care. If that doesn't work for anyone here, you are free to leave." Silence. Then, the cook steps forward, places her apron over her heart. "I'll stay." The gardener nods. "Me too." One by one, they all agree. Even the nurse, who once doubted. Miriam squeezes Jonathan's hand once everyone leaves the room. "You did that," she says. He shakes his head. "No, we did." That evening, the boys sit on the porch with Jonathan. He reads from their mother's notebook. His voice is steady. Isaac rests against his side. Isaiah traces a leaf on the bench with his fingers. Jonathan reads aloud. "The world will tell you to fix your children, but love will teach you to sit with them in their silence, and to stay until they trust your quiet more than your words." He closes the notebook, looks up at the sky. Stars are beginning to appear. 1, then 3, then a cluster. Miriam joins them with a blanket and a candle. They all sit together, watching the dusk turn to night. No rush, no schedule, just presence. Later, when the house has gone still, Jonathan walks into the boys' room one last time. He finds them asleep, holding hands. Something glows faintly between them. The candle Miriam left flickering like a heart that refuses to dim. He kneels beside them, touches their hair, and whispers the words he used to whisper before everything broke. I love you. It doesn't startle them. It doesn't wake them. But one of them no one knows who whispers back, Mama. Jonathan gasps. He looks at them, eyes still closed, but the word lingers in the air like incense. Miriam steps in quietly behind him. She hears it too. They meet each other's eyes in the dark. Tears fall not from sorrow, from resurrection. The voice didn't say it to her, didn't say it to him, but it was spoken. And in this house, that word had not been heard in years. And now it is reborn, in their silence, in their breath, in the light of one small flame. And Jonathan, who once tried to buy healing with science and walls, finally understands. Love didn't arrive with a cure. It arrived on the floor, in stillness, in tears, in lullabies, and it stayed. Morning light spills gently across the wooden floors like paint from a soft brush. No sharp angles, no blinding rays, just warmth. Jonathan is already awake. He sits in the sunroom, his journal open on his lap. The pages are filled now not with business notes or legal deadlines, but with moments, glimpses. Breaths he was too broken to notice before. He writes slowly, as though the words have weight. Isaiah said Mama last night. Or maybe Isaac. But it doesn't matter who. It matters that it was said, and that it stayed in the air long enough for all of us to believe it. In the twins' room, Miriam prepares the floor again. No toys, just a soft blanket, a circle of stones, and one wooden bowl filled with water. She hums, but not a lullaby today. Something wordless, something deeper. The boys crawl into the space beside her without being asked. They sit close, but not clinging. Their bodies are lighter now, less curled, less guarded. Miriam dips her fingers into the water, then gently presses a drop onto each boy's forehead. They giggle. She smiles and whispers, "You are seen, you are known, you are loved." The house listens and holds the moment like breath before a prayer. Midday brings a call, one that Jonathan has been expecting and dreading. An elite private institution, long waitlisted, calls to confirm that 2 slots have opened for his sons, a once-in-a-lifetime chance. The best therapists, the best facilities, top-tier experts in neurodevelopmental intervention. Jonathan thanks them and hangs up, then sits, still, unmoving. Miriam finds him like that, phone in hand, eyes far away. "You got the call," she says quietly. He nods. She doesn't speak again. She just waits. Finally, he breaks the silence. "Everyone would say it's the right choice. A real future. Progress." Miriam nods gently. "They might. But I'm scared," he confesses. "Not for them, for me. Because if they go, I won't be there." Miriam kneels beside him, her voice soft, unshaken. "Are you finally ready to be their father, or still trying to be their fixer?" The question hangs in the air. He doesn't answer. Not yet. But he weeps. That evening, Miriam lays out the twins' mother's lullaby pages in the garden. The paper is worn, but the ink is still legible. She invites the boys to touch them, to trace the curves of the notes. They do. Isaac presses a small stone onto the corner of the page to keep it from blowing away. Isaiah begins humming again. Soft, stronger this time. Jonathan joins them in the garden. He doesn't interrupt. He kneels on the grass beside his sons and places his hand gently on Isaiah's back. And for the first time, Isaiah leans in. A small act, but enormous. The sound of belonging, the breath of presence. Miriam watches. She doesn't cry. She just breathes, deeply, gratefully, and writes in her notebook, "They're choosing him now, not because he's strong, but because he's still." The next day, Dr. Ellison returns unannounced. She walks through the house with hesitation this time. No aides, no clipboard. She finds Miriam on the back porch, polishing the wooden recorder from the box. Dr. Ellison looks uncertain. "You have to know how rare this is," she says. Miriam doesn't look up. "I do. These boys were marked as non-responsive for years. And now, I've reviewed the footage, the files. It's not possible. Not medically." Miriam holds the recorder up to the light. "Not everything can be explained by medicine." Dr. Ellison folds her arms. "What exactly did you do?" Miriam finally looks at her. "I waited." Dr. Ellison frowns. "That's not an answer." Miriam smiles gently. It's the only one that matters. She sets the recorder down and stands, then adds softly, "Don't confuse healing with performance." The boys didn't need to improve, they needed to be safe. Dr. Ellison leaves without another word, but she doesn't slam the door. She closes it quietly. That night, Jonathan takes the twins to the nursery, the one he never finished decorating after the diagnosis. The mobile still hangs over the crib, still, untouched. He sits with them on the floor, reads to them from the lullaby book. One of the songs ends with a line their mother wrote in faded pencil. "If you ever hear them laugh, promise me you'll stop whatever you're doing and laugh with them." He looks up. Isaac is smiling. Then he laughs. Full, bright, sudden. Isaiah follows, a burst of joy. Two uncoordinated, unpracticed, glorious laughs. Jonathan freezes, then remembers. He throws his head back and laughs too. Loud, messy, real. Miriam hears it from the hallway. She closes her eyes. The sound echoes down the hall, through the walls, into the bones of the house. It reaches the past and rewrites it. Later, Miriam walks outside to the garden. She kneels in the soil and places her hand over the roots of the lily plant. It's fully bloomed now, and beside it, a second bud. She breathes in, then closes her notebook for the night. The last thing she wrote, they laughed. The house is full again. Tomorrow, I'll ask Jonathan if he wants to stay. Not just in the house, but in their hearts. The day begins without alarm. No rush, no clock-driven movement, just the gentle sound of wind pushing through linen curtains and the faint, rhythmic padding of small feet across the nursery floor. Yes, feet. Isaac walks first. Not far, just 4 steps across the rug before wobbling into Jonathan's arms. He doesn't fall. He lands. And that alone is a miracle. Jonathan freezes, breath caught, hands trembling around his son's waist. He's too stunned to react, too overwhelmed to speak. Isaac presses his forehead into his father's chest and stays there. No one trained him to do this. No cue cards, no drills, just instinct, trust, love. Miriam stands quietly in the doorway. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't even smile, not outwardly, but her eyes close in the stillness, and a tear finds its way down her cheek. Isaiah follows hours later. His first step is uncertain, more shuffle than stride. But his gaze is steady, aimed at the garden door. Jonathan offers his hand. Isaiah takes it. No hesitation. Together, they step into the morning. The lilies are in full bloom now. 3 of them. Miriam kneels beside them with a watering can. Jonathan approaches slowly, 1 twin in each hand. He watches her for a long time before speaking. "I'm afraid," he says quietly. She looks up. "Of what?" "That it won't last. That this peace will fade. That I'll fail again." She sets the watering can down, then walks over and places her hand gently over his heart. "You probably will. We all do. But now, you're not alone." Later that afternoon, they sit in the courtyard. Miriam, Jonathan, Isaac, Isaiah. No agenda, no noise. Just shadows on stone, laughter in bursts, wind in leaves. The boys play with small stones from the earth circle they once built. Isaiah arranges his into a line. Isaac places his in a spiral. Jonathan watches them, then turns to Miriam. "I got a call today," he says. She doesn't answer, just listens. It was the foundation. They want to name the new wing after her, the therapy center we funded. Miriam nods gently. "That's beautiful." He exhales, then adds, "But I told them no." She turns, surprised. "I asked them to name it after the twins." A beat. He smiles. "They're the miracle." That night, after everyone is asleep, Miriam walks to the nursery one last time. She stands in the doorway, watching the twins in their beds, their chests rising and falling in perfect rhythm, their hands curled gently under their cheeks. She steps inside and leaves a single candle by the window. Next to it, she places her notebook. She doesn't write anything new. The last line from the night before still lingers like a quiet song. "Tomorrow, I'll ask Jonathan if he wants to stay not just in the house, but in their hearts." As she turns to leave, she finds Jonathan standing behind her. He has a question in his eyes, but he doesn't ask it. Instead, he says, "You never told me where you came from." Miriam smiles. "I came from silence too." He nods. then extends his hand. Stay. She takes it. Morning comes, and with it, laughter. The real kind. The messy, uncoordinated, soul-shaking kind that bursts from the kitchen before breakfast. Isaac is spinning in circles. Isaiah is clapping. Jonathan is trying to keep up barefoot on the kitchen tiles, apron dusted with flour. Miriam stands at the edge of the room, one hand over her heart, watching it all. And in that moment, the house is no longer a monument to loss. It's a living place, a breathing place, a place where silence once ruled, and now sings. The camera cuts to the hallway wall. A framed page from the wife's lullaby journal now hangs there. The ink has faded slightly, but the words remain. If they never speak, love them louder. If they never walk, walk slower beside them. If they are silent forever, teach them that presence is still a language. Beneath it, a second frame, a photo. Jonathan, Miriam, the twins, together on the garden steps. No forced smiles, no performance, just peace, just breath, just family. Fade to black. Then, one last whisper, a child's voice, soft, unclear, but full of light. Stay. And this time, the voice belongs to both of them. Together,